Hi, this is Scott Herbst. I am founder and president of Six Flex Training and Consulting, and you're listening to The Flex. This is a podcast where we have conversations with people who are expressing leadership and do so with the intention that it open access to you expressing yours. Today on our show, I am super excited to introduce you to Dr. Ginger Raabe. Ginger and I go way back, and in the time we go back, we were in grad school together, and then Ginger, you graduated. I watched you found a business, struggle with that, overcome some challenges, make it successful, sell it, move into your dream house across the country, halfway across the country, and get bored and start a consulting company for ABA leaders. And then, the next thing, like seeing a need for services where you are in South Dakota. I don't even know what to title or et cetera to introduce you as, but how are you? Thanks for being here.
Thanks. It's interesting to hear your own introduction. So thank you for that. I'll say that the path towards getting here, Scott, and being able to, connect with you, potentially offer possibilities to others around a conversation of, like you said, navigating all different parts, the highs and the lows and the low lows of running a company. I welcome it. I welcome the conversation.
Cool. Before we got on, I was telling you, here's the real intention is that I take the case anyone's a leader, right? And you don't need credential, you don't need appointments. It's not your degree. It's not like where your office is or the desk you have in the company. It's not that your name's on the door, whatever. Anyone at any time can provide leadership. And I know you've been through a lot. So, and I didn't tell you I was going to do this, but you at some point shared with me a story that I found pretty compelling. And it was with your first company. And you had just kind of hit a wall and were struggling, and I don't want to tell your story. Do you get what I'm talking about?
I'll tell it.
Are you willing to talk about that at all?
Yeah, I am. I'm
I
actually
think
willing
that
to
has a lot for like anyone who's looking to lead, whether it's their company or in their family or anything.
Right. So I co-founded an organization, I'd say became a mid-sized organization, but co-founded in 2006. Really just out of the gates, just a lot of success, 33 months of substantial growth, including like really everything from like amazing child outcomes, presenting at every conference, so pleased with the clinical outcomes that we were achieving, the overall like building of the team, the momentum, you name it. And then all of a sudden it's 3 years in, and this is 2009. So this is, a little dated. And we had a really, really big difficulty where we were seen as the reason that districts and insurance companies and regional centers were kind of not getting along. And overnight, it seemed that all of our contracts, all of the kids that were with us were at risk. And so were our employees. We really thought we were going to lose the entire team. And
Like you're going to lose your clients and lose your employees.
Lose the clients, lose the team, all of these children, what will happen to them? We've been working so hard. We had all of this development, and it was paralyzing. I was coming from a place of like, what will we do? I don't know what to do. I don't know what to do. Really, really like heightened stress and tears and, absolutely overwhelmed. And in speaking with a couple fellow behavior analysts, they had suggested some power around, gaining some power around language and gaining some skills around possibilities in my world. Consider that it might be that there's barriers that are in front of you that you could take on if you took on a new way of seeing this. And at this point, you have
Yes.
to imagine I'm completely skeptical. There's just no way to see this other than exactly what it is, daunting, terrible,
Yeah.
everything's kind of falling apart around us. It feels
Yeah.
so. Um,
And let me underline something, because you said a couple things I just really want to point to, and I don't want to scoot by. You pointed to like a way of seeing. And I think this is something I really think spend a lot of time thinking about, that seeing is an active process. That it's not like the world is just there and I objectively look at it, like my eyes just respond to it based on how it is. It's like I bring something to it, right?
yeah.
So I think you pointed to that. And then I forget what else I was going to say. Keep going. But I wanted to underline that because I
I
think
mean,
that's
even, but
pretty.
you saying that is that, at the it can be powerful in retrospect. When I think of that, or you say seeing it, or the perspective of kind of where I was standing at that point, is that
Yeah.
you can be so close to it. Like it's right in front of you. You can't see it. You
Mhm.
can't see anything around it. The idea that it was being suggested to me that something like access to a different way of talking about it, seeing it, having a different perspective around it, via, and not to cut to the point, but via kind of the basis of ACT, the language-based curriculum, kind of the colloquial version, if you will, that is related to kind of the more advanced scientific, empirically based version around ACT. And this is what was, really suggested to me. And I participated. I believe I called you that weekend. To be really
Yeah.
transparent, I believe I called you while participating because I was really struggling still with the idea of being disconnected with the way that I was seeing it. How would I see the world anyway, any differently? How would I take on a different way of talking about things? How would I let go of the way that I was talking about it as being real? This is the talk was the event itself in my world. This is what I was really, overwhelmed
Yeah.
and
And let me see if I'm hearing you. So
okay.
you're like, okay, I need something. A couple people recommend, like, do this workshop. You'll actually look at your way of looking at things as a way of looking at things that that has a lot to do with the things you say and think,
Yeah,
right? And so you bring this workshop, or that you bring this problem. What am I going to do about this business that look like, I'm a pretty objective person. I know what's going on.
yeah,
Uh, but like I got to try something. Okay, fine. So you're in this workshop, like looking at how you're looking at this, and
yeah,
what you have to say about it and how you talk about it. They get that?
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Cool.
exactly. And in the presence of the suggestion that you could actually see it differently, or that in one weekend, by gaining access to this content, and some continued content, obviously, that you could see it differently, that you could
Yeah.
create possibilities around the problem that seems like there's nothing to get, there's no possibility here. It is all doom and gloom.
Yes.
Um, I was very, very skeptical, and yet it I found possibilities. That was one of the first examples that I shared with you. And there were
Yeah.
a couple more times where throughout the course of my business, I have been very fortunate to gain access to different types of tools.
Yeah.
Those tools have assisted me in, taking on one barrier, or, increasing barriers, or climbing the mountain of things that
Yeah.
are in front of me, and being able to kind of take it on in a more powerful way.
Yeah. So say something about that. That um. So I got the basic concept of it, right? Now, I am curious, what is it you saw about how you were looking at it and what was a new possible way that you
Yeah.
talked about inventing possibilities. And that's
Yeah.
like a little, um, I think if I was just hearing that as a listener, without, I kind of know what you're talking about, right?
Right.
I would be skeptical like you were, right?
Right.
So can you give like a concrete example? Like, here's what I was seeing, or here's how I saw it, and here's how I, like, once I saw it, how it shifted and what I invented and how that like opened up new action and what I did. And
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah,
I I was too close to the problem to even realize that my perspective on it, what the way that I was viewing this problem, um, was with just this a lot of baggage. I had animosity. I had really emotional responding and resentment, even believe it or not, resentment towards something that I created.
yeah,
It was coming from a place that I was never going to be able to get at the problem. I was not going to get at my to-do list. There was just too many things to do. Those things were so incredibly difficult. And I, I did not even know that that's really how I was responding to it. In the participation of listening to others and starting to understand that there was a lot of talk, and that talk, self-talk, talk to others, was really taking up my entire world and starting to create this like really negative heaviness about
yeah,
something that I had created. So ultimately, I'm the cause of the problem because I continue to create this, although I'm not seeing that. I'm not,
yeah. And I'm
I'm
going to underline
close
some
to
of the
it.
things you just said now. Like, it'll never end.
Oh, yeah.
It's really difficult. There's always something else. Uh,
Yeah.
and not just like, oh, like this is actually, yeah, there's stuff to do, but like, no, it's like this like never ending pile of difficult things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And no one can help me. It's just,
I'm on my own in this.
I'm on
Yep.
my own, right?
Yep.
Like I'm
Totally.
on my
Awesome.
own. I have to be the one to struggle through, and that it's my
Oh, like I have to be the one.
yeah, just
Yeah.
me. That's it. I'm in it by myself.
Yeah.
And my company, an inanimate object, right? A physical, a thing that I created is doing this to me,
Yes.
which now makes me want to kind of giggle a little bit. And looking back, there's definitely much more conversation and more powerful possibilities. But that's really where I was standing, is I was coming from this place of like, this will never get better. This is what I signed myself up for. This is just happening to me. Everything's happening to me. I'm no longer in control of this. I no
Yeah.
longer have access to this like way of being of being powerful again. So many great things have happened, and now it's just all really, really overwhelming. And can't see any possibilities, can't see um anything, any actions, any steps.
Yeah.
If there are some steps, they're already on top of everything else that's feeling really heavy and like a burden and like unworkable.
Yeah. I want to make this useful for anyone who's listening. Point to a couple steps. Like, first, there was actually really taking an honest look about what am I saying about this? And then being really responsible that I'm the one saying it. Is
Yes,
that kind
yes,
of how it, like,
that's part of
broadly
how
how
it
it kind of went?
unraveled. And that was the very sticky, difficult part in the middle, is that there was really started to be a glaring acknowledgement that I was responsible for that perspective, and that this is what others had been saying to me. Others had been trying to coach me, let's say the peanut
Like,
gallery.
hey, Ginger, you're not alone here. Like
No,
that.
I'll help you.
Yeah.
Do it together. We can do this. There's things that we can do, right? And or it seems as though you're really just kind of responding strongly to this. Like maybe this is something that you have to kind of like work through, right? Where, and then, in your private heart of hearts, you're walking away going, it, no, no one's going to help me. No one can help me figure this out. You're just stuck there. You're stuck in not knowing exactly what to do. And also all of the emotional responding, all of that heaviness is just causing lack of action.
Yeah.
It's not causing like, let's go try everything, which is exactly, to what happened, what the process created for me was not the answer. It was the positive perspective of understanding where I was, what the problem was, and that there were possibilities around it, and releasing. You'll be better at describing kind of in a more technical way what I went through, because this feels like
Yeah.
so long ago for me. But I know you have a little bit more training and expertise on kind of breaking this down. But what was really obvious is that when there was a responsibility towards the perspective and to the ownership of that being my perspective, and also that I am the person who was making that big, harder, you know, um, the to-do list. I was the person making that to-do list. No one was doing it to me. I was absolutely doing that to myself. I was
Mhm.
adding the things to my list that were making me so busy that I couldn't take out my own list, which,
Uh-huh.
and when you think about that now, that's laughable, right? That's like, wow. But in that moment, we're talking about somebody who's really already been quite
Yeah,
successful
but I
in
mean,
that
it's so
business,
funny because we
falling
do that
apart.
stuff, you know. Uh, we do that stuff. I was recently in my business. I plan my business, right? And and at the beginning of the year it was really struggling. And I took a step back and I looked and I was like, what's going on? Like, because I know if I'm like completely struggling, like I'm locked into some pattern, my vision is kind of shut down. There's something I'm saying, whether it's out loud or just kind of rolling around in my head, right? And I looked at that and I realized like my vocab around my business was that it's a struggle and it's a grind. And um and then the next thing was like I realized like, oh my God, like all my behavior tracks with that. And when I do my planning, it's like I actually plan to struggle.
Yeah.
Like I
And
actually lay out my plan thinking this is going to be a struggle, and then I build the struggle into it, right?
I've built in problem resolution into my schedule before. Absolutely. Right.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And at that, one of the things that opened up for me, and will occasionally still open up for me again, is that my definition of a successful business owner was a stressed out human. If you weren't
Mm.
stressed out and overwhelmed and talking about it constantly, but there was an assumption that you weren't successful. That was my own definition of a business,
Yeah, what was it? Was it like, well, you're not really giving it your all, or you're holding like,
right? Sleep when you're
yeah,
dead, Scott. Like, keep working, work harder. All of these, colloquialisms around it, and like you said, and then all my behavior would track in accordance with that. Like, work
yeah,
harder, do the same thing. It can be not working, but keep doing it. Do it more. Don't sleep. Don't cut back what you're doing because you're failing. So keep going. Keep not change what you're doing, right? That wasn't a possibility for me at that point. It was
yeah,
do as you've done and do it more. Make that
yeah,
to-do list longer. Be successful, work harder by working more, not working smarter, not creating, not an acknowledgement of like, this doesn't seem like it's working. What could you do different? Because I didn't have
mhm,
access to that. I didn't have access to really even that was my story. In
yeah,
fact, I didn't realize that I was walking around, like you said, tracking everything in accordance with that story. How are you, Ginger? Oh, it's just so busy, it's just so much going on. We now are at, we had 80 learners in the first month of the organization, right? And they were, I won't go into detail, but that sounds really, really extreme, but it was a different type of deal then, and working with different types of kids. But that was the story. That was where I took it with me everywhere. There was no relaxation. There was no having dinner, because business people that are really good business people don't relax. They, this is what they do. And so there was, even at dinner, everywhere that I was, that's all that I was thinking about or talking about and putting into the world. So no big surprise. Everyone was engaging with me in that way also.
Awesome. What I mean, when it shifted, like what opened up, what new actions, what?
Yeah. What opened up was really the acknowledgement that I had created this as a possibility. I was the person who could create other possibilities around that problem. There was really a lightness. There was power. I had regained
Yeah.
power around the problem. I had communicated to others in my environment what I needed for them, or what I thought would be helpful, so that it was a
Yeah.
team approach. So there was really a breakdown in communication, that because I was really excessively communicative about how busy and stressful I was, there was some assumption that everybody else would know then how to help me solve that problem, right? At some level, or that they too would just jump on board and do more. So if it looked like they were relaxing, like, having a weekend to themselves, then they were part of the problem, right? In my world at that point, it was like, oh, so lucky for him. He can relax on the weekend. He must not be a busy, stressed out business owner, right? There was
Yes.
all of this talk around it, and realizing this, understanding this really forceful process, if you will. This was very difficult for me to come to this conclusion. But there was really power in creating some different communication, in, really taking on that this is what it would look like, for us to potentially do A, B, C, D, E, F, G. I think I came out with 46 possibilities around this problem, where I was ready.
46 like possible actions. Like we could try
Yeah.
this and we could try
We could try
that.
this, we could try this, we could try this. I just created a really long list, and I was excited about that
Mhm.
list. I was no longer as overwhelming and daunting, because I had understood that I was part of that participation. I came to really the acknowledgement that I could do it different. I didn't have to just work day in and day out. I could establish some parameters. I
Yeah.
could be in line with my values. I could really clarify what it meant to be a business owner, or what I needed to, relax. Graduate school really, is counterintuitive to relaxation. And, we're really taught even in graduate school that, relaxation just equals guilt of what you're not getting done. I
Yeah. You,
created some
like they
boundaries
keep the
around that,
library open till midnight. And
right?
yeah.
Constantly, right? I created boundaries around it. I created some boundaries around my time. I created, like I said, possibilities around communication with the other partner and other team members with me about what we could do. I was no longer had to be in control of all of the possibilities, and control of the problems, and control of probably the problems and the success. But I
Yeah.
created communication around, what if we tried this? What if we tried this? I threw a lot of these possibilities out to the team to see what they thought were powerful. I had really a powerful conversation with them about how, um, about the problem, about the possibilities. And instead of taking on this burden, we collectively kind of talked about what we thought would be powerful. And it was like earth shattering for me. For at that point, it really, really impacted every part of my life and every part of my, definitely, version of happiness, to be able to work together with others on something we collectively cared about, and possibilities that they were willing to be responsible for also. It wasn't just going to be my burden coming out of
Yeah.
that. And the great part is they had been waiting for that. That's what
Uh-huh.
they had been trying to say leading into this is like, we can help, I can help. And it was like, oh, nobody can
Yeah.
help me. It's just my problem. I'm responsible. And it, we really took on for the next, I think it was like 9 months, really rolling out these possibilities. We really solved those problems. It took a lot of not very direct problem resolution. A lot of possibilities came together to collectively get us all those kids back. And they were all back with us. It took months, but with the same team and this team working together around possibilities.
Yeah. I just want to summarize what I'm hearing. And and then we can recommend some resources in the show notes about how people can get like more into this and do some of this work for or on themselves. But it sounds like you really, I mean, almost did like self-surgery on the things you were saying and like all the different viewpoints you had in a lot of different ways. Like, what is it to be successful? And not just like what you would say out loud, but like an honest look about like, no, really, how am I viewing success and what it takes to be successful? And then challenging that assumption, like, wait, is this really what I want? Or is this really what it takes? Or um and so like being successful and how do you like, and well, like not just, oh, here's the picture of it, you got to work really hard and I got to do it all on my own and I got to prove that like I'm doing a lot. And as you started to really investigate that, that's when things started to kind of fall away and open up.
They did. Yeah. And what fell away is the old patterns, the old ways of just doing the same thing 24 hours a day, sleep when you're dead. Don't sleep, just keep doing the same thing over and over again and creating this kind of like overall daunting patterns
Yeah.
to opening up with that possibilities in the presence of really good boundaries, like unheard of, right? Establishing, implementing stimulus control procedures so that I'm only working at my desk, for example, as opposed to working in bed, working at home, working the whole night. I established really around values of what it meant to be a good daughter, what it meant for me to be a good
Yeah.
sister, a good friend at that point, not just a good business person, and created some boundaries around them. And then in the presence of these 46 possibilities, starting to work together with other people to be able to try try novel things, not just be stuck in those kind of same patterns of do it more. Um, and it started to open up other possibilities. And all of a sudden, it was really collaborative um, actions with really clear communication about what felt helpful and maybe less helpful. So that actions started to really create other like, oh, and now that's kind of working. What about this? Should we do this? And just
Mhm.
really a paradigm shift in the way by which that I was running the company.
Awesome. I think that will give our listeners a bunch to chew on and consider.
Yeah.
And I want to shift gears a little bit now. What are you up to now? What's next? What's your next point of growth? What do you want to really share about and let people know?
Yeah, thank you. So ultimately, you can imagine in a similar vein, in all of the years that I was running that company, that was an 18-year adventure. Started in 2006 and I went for 18 years, became really powerful. It continued to be powerful, continued to co-create with the team members. What was kind of powerful there that I think started in this lesson and continued throughout the company and became its own thing, is that the company became what the team members wanted to create. It was like science is what scientists do, right? Like this company became simply what it was that we were looking to do and what would be valuable to us and what we wanted to spend our time and passions on. We created all different types of service. We worked with all major funders and we really leaned into a community. We leaned in really hard. So when we worked with birth to 3, it turned out that they got older and they went to school. So we started to work with school districts. The more that we worked with school districts, we really enjoyed working with school districts. So that led to these families needing some extra services. And then, behavioral health and medically necessary services came along and we started to lean in. And this was 2012 to medically necessary services, working with insurance companies that then progressed to like, well, we could do that in center-based models. And we created a center that led into creating a school. Ultimately, all of the things were like, really, what does this community need as children continue to age, or in our collaborations with families and with districts? All of this really created, for me, just a lot of power. Like it felt powerful to do it. That's what I mean by saying that. Um,
Yeah.
COVID was
The
very, very
experience of
difficult.
being powerful.
Yeah, the
Yeah.
experience of really working together and creating access to great behavior analysis across different funders, across different types of learners, and really just a lot of lessons learned, which is really how that led to my next company, is that I came from a place of like, wow, some of this was harder to learn than other things. And ultimately, I've been doing this now for 18 years with really like great thought partners, just great thought partners. And that process then led to, how do I give back? Like you said, I did work with another organization to partner with that other organization on and ultimately offset the owner responsibility, with the goal of really leaning in back to my PhD and being clinical again, not just being the business owner, right? I came from a place, especially throughout COVID, that it was necessary to kind of return a little bit to my roots, which is kind of thus part of the reason why I'm even back here in South Dakota, but to return to being a clinician. It had been many years since I had been clinical. And yet I also wanted to, give back to the field of behavior analysis and say, how could I give back? What I'm really, observing is that there's some different ways to do that, whether that be participation in, state associations, boards. I kind of like considered that and kind of dabbled in that a little bit and realized that's maybe not where I show up the best. But also my observation was there's a lot of companies, there's a lot of organizations. This demand has created the circumstance that very new BCBAs can open their doors, open an organization, and demand alone makes it look successful. And it came from a place of being like, it's going to happen. This demand is going to mean they open their doors. There's no fighting that. There's no saying that's right or wrong. How could I lean in and support that? And the way that I could, in my own thought, is that I could take these lessons learned in the last 18 years of really traversing all of those different barriers and funders and types of kids and lean back into organizations. I also had the goal of really leaning back in clinically, like I mentioned. So I wanted to create some models that would support clinicians, whether that be supporting them in their business, which I have kind of a business coaching model, but also a clinical collaboration model. Because I'm coming from a place of like all the data suggests that, when I became a BCBA in 2003, there were very few of us. Now I see Jim Carr's data about the BACB numbers, or 50% of the BCBAs in California are in their first year. And I come from a place of like,
Really?
let's support them.
Yeah. Wow.
Let's lean in. And so creating mentors models is what I'm really doing in that clinical collaboration piece, is really saying, and the way that I had a mentor, I didn't talk about that, but that really happened in 15, I had someone come on and help me within my organization. And it was amazing to have another thought partner. So that's what I kind of aim, not kind of, that is what I aim to create with the Treehouse Group, is really creating resources for clinician-led organizations, whether that be business coaching or clinical collaboration that keeps or helps with these clinicians to keep them powerful within their organizations. Hopefully, keep the doors open. Hopefully, the way that I can help them help kids is to make it a little bit easier to be them within their leadership roles.
Yeah.
You mentioned in the presence of doing that and working with other clinicians, I did return home here to the state of South Dakota. I love South Dakota. I must be one of the few people that really
Yeah,
knows
you
what.
don't hear people say that much,
No, I know you really don't.
but that's awesome. Go where you
Yeah,
love.
yeah. I'm back home.
Yeah.
And being back home, I've been here helping other organizations. And finally, I came to a place of like, I know what to do. I know how to help kids. Why wouldn't I? I
Yeah.
love where I am. I believe that there's different ways to lean in, and I needed to lean in with the kids. So I leaned into organizations, I leaned in with the clinicians, and now I'm leaning in with local families and creating there's an aspect of Treehouse that's now called Treehouse Therapy, and it's nest-based services. We're creating a center here in South Dakota, the first
Awesome.
center in South Dakota. So
Awesome.
for
Uh,
me, they're all passion projects, right? It's just been
yes.
navigating a trajectory, a traversing of everything since I knew you in grad school, and looping back on this to create now something based on all of that learning um, and what my observations are of a way that I can be valuable and give back to the field.
Yeah. You haven't said this. You said it. I want people to know this, that one thing I really admire about you that I think really is powerful is like you are really strong at sourcing yourself. And when I say sourcing yourself, I mean like sourcing yourself through others. So you mentioned like the guy you brought in 2015, we've been talking recently, and it's just very clear you've got like when you've got a question, you've got people, you either have people you go to or you find those people to go to. And and you've clearly transformed that, like, I got to do it all on my own thing,
Yeah.
because you really are like brilliant at creating thought partners. I'm honored to, like, you were like, I want you to be a thought partner. I'm like, oh my God, me? Like, you know, uh, but so I've seen that in action, and you're also someone I really admire because you do like, you're like, I'm creating Treehouse, and now I'm creating Treehouse Therapy, and like, and you are like, you just creativity, you're effervescent with it. Let's say it that way.
Oh, I appreciate that. I do in this sharing of this story, it is very transparent to me that I don't like to do it alone anymore. I really
Yeah,
do like to do it with someone else. And whether that be because I had really strong thought partners for those 18 years. But I like the idea of leaning in, talking to others. I believe I said to you that for the first time, I would have a systems and an OBM thought partner on some of the things that you and I are looking to co-create. And that to me is like, wow, that means that we get to not only make it a little bit easier on each of us, but collectively, if we can do it together, then it's just more powerful.
yeah,
Uh,
and more
and
fun too.
that's yeah, you get to work with people that you like. I mean, it's been a lot of years since we were in grad school together, and yet I really enjoy you, and I really enjoy our colleagues that we went to graduate school with. I'm still very close to many at the University of Nevada, Reno, because obviously we're pretty similar creatures, and staying close 25 years later and sharing these experiences, and whether that be students when you were teaching, or whether that be organizations that you and I are co-creating and doing some research with, that feels great to work with people you like.
Awesome. We got to wrap this up.
All right.
Last question. One, thank you for being here. Thanks for sharing and just being so open. How can people reach you if they want to find out more?
Sure. Yeah. The website is probably the easiest way. It's a constant work in progress, but it's www.thetreehousegroup.org. And
Awesome.
obviously reaching out to me, I'm Ginger at the Treehouse Group, would get you access to me directly if there's any questions. But I really appreciate being able to share. Thank you for having me. Thank you for being able to, I love being able to share this organization, and the way that I loved the first one, I love this one also. I love what I'm slowly creating here, and I love the possibility to share it. So thank you.
You're welcome. And thanks again for being here. This concludes, everyone, this episode of The Flex. Thank you to those of you who are listening, and we will see you back here next time.
Thanks, Scott.